Silo has just wrapped up its long awaited second season, and in this video, we're going to break down the finale, share our thoughts on the season as a whole, and talk about what might happen in seasons 3 and 4. Welcome back to Movies Good Internet Bad. I'm Cory, that's Shane. Go ahead and click that subscribe button if you like movies and TV. And Shane, let's just get right into it, man. This was a highly anticipated season of television, and the finale was pretty epic. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it overall before we dive into it.
Yeah, I think my opinion was like most people's, where throughout the season I was like, "Is this going anywhere?" Just very slow, very slow. Juliet fetch quest, and then the last two episodes really brought it home, and I think the
Yeah.
finale really uh, rewarded all of us for staying on board for the whole season.
Yeah, and ended with quite the interesting cliffhanger that I
Yeah,
personally did not see coming, as someone who has not read the source material
yeah.
that this is based off of.
So I think that's
Um,
important too. We
yeah,
Any speculation you hear in this video is pure speculation. We have not read the books, so
yeah. I think I'm going to
all
go
show
back and
watchers.
read a little bit of it though. Now, apparently, seasons 1 and 2 covers mostly the entire first book of the series, and then there's two others that are going to be seasons 3 and 4. But we'll talk about that later in the
Got it.
video. So let's break down this finale. Let's kick it off. Where do we start?
Yeah, so I think we can break it down into both storylines. So we can start with what's happening in Silo 17 and then talk
Okay,
about Silo 18. So
sure.
in Silo 17, the big crucial piece of information that we get is that Solo's parents discovered the key to disabling the safeguard protocol,
Yeah,
which they reveal as this pipe that is filled with poison that can kill the entire silo.
yeah.
So that is very convenient given that the safeguard protocol is being talked about a lot in the other
And the
silo.
other
So
silo.
the
Yeah, I
stories
was way
are,
off base with this because
what
when
did
I
you think the
saw,
safeguard protocol was?
well, I didn't. It wasn't about the safeguard part. It was more about the fact that there's a giant pipe down underneath the silo. I thought, oh, cool. There's like a bridge that connects all 51 silos to one
Yeah.
another, and like you can go visit people, and it will make the world bigger. And nope, just kidding. It's a giant murder machine.
Yes. Yeah. No, I thought the same thing, right? Where I thought the ending of this season was going to be Juliet going through the tunnel to get to the other silo
Right.
and
Exactly.
emerging from the
Yeah.
bottom, rather than, yeah, that just being a giant thing that kills everybody.
I thought the exact same thing, but
Yeah.
very menacing, and
Hmm.
it makes things certainly very interesting
Yeah.
once we get to the end of this episode. With what happens in, I'm going to call it OG Silo, because I'm never going to remember
Yeah.
which one is 17 and which one's 18.
I
But
think 18 is the OG Silo and 17 is the one that Juliet and Solo are in.
okay, and Solo, who is played by Steve Zahn, who I hadn't seen in much of anything outside of the White Lotus and Saving Silverman way back in the day. So
Yeah.
good to
And
see
he's
him getting
awesome.
some work.
Yeah,
He's very
he's
good
great.
in the show. So um, yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah. So then they find out that the suit is kind of chewed through. That they find, I guess there was another suit that Solo's parents had,
Yep.
and they find out that it's kind of chewed through moths. I guess do moths exist in the silo?
Who
Uh,
knows?
but it is a very convenient plot point for what
Could you
happens
call
in the
them plot
end.
holes by chance?
They
Huh?
are.
Huh? Huh?
They're yeah.
I'll see myself
Uh,
out. I'm gonna
yes.
go.
But Juliet has to not use that suit because she needs the plot armor for later.
Correct.
So she uses the fireman suit, which Solo goes and tests by jumping underwater and making
Hmm.
sure that there's no leaks. So that was a fun little moment. Although I
Yeah,
don't know why he disguised it, right? Like, why not just say, hey, we should test it in the water
I
and
don't
see
know,
if it
man.
works?
It felt like the whole season they were trying to tease you with the idea of Solo being evil, and
Yeah.
then he's just a giant child in an
Yeah.
adult's body, and he's
Yep.
actually got a good
Yeah.
heart and everything. So
Hmm.
I was happy that he wasn't evil for the record. I think
Yeah.
he was an interesting character that needed to find some friendship and some companionship, and I'm curious to see where things actually end up going with him,
Yeah, if they come back to the
if
silo,
they
or
even come
if
back at
that's
all. Yeah,
kind of the end of this story for now. I'm
yep,
not sure. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of the main storyline in this silo, and I think it's just a microcosm of the whole season, where there's a lot of stuff happening in Silo 18 and
Mhm.
there's not that much stuff happening in Silo 17, so they got to
Yeah.
stretch it out
Which
across
is
the
really
entire
it's really
season.
fascinating because Rebecca Ferguson is obviously the main character of this show, right? And it's almost kind of like what happened to the Daemon Targaryen character in the second season of House of the Dragon, where he
Yeah.
was off in that spooky castle for
Yes.
what felt like an eternity, while the other part of the plot was moving at a faster pace,
Hmm.
which I think is pretty much what happened in the OG Silo in this one. But yeah, how do you feel about kind of sidelining the main character for almost an entire season?
Yeah, I think I honestly, I think if it had not been the main character, that would have not been a big piece of the show.
Sure.
That was maybe the only reason why they expanded that storyline so much, is
Okay.
because it was Rebecca Ferguson, like your highest paid star, who's an executive producer on the show.
Right.
You got to give her things to do.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it kind of felt like watching a video game play out, because it was
Mm.
like, hey, go get this piece, and then go get this piece, and then fix the pump, and then I can help you. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
fetch
Um,
quests.
I also kind of thought that the pirate folks on that silo were, I guess they're there. I didn't feel like they were 100% necessary, and
No, not
the
really.
fact that they were introduced in the penultimate episode of the season, I thought kind of forced their introduction a little bit. I think I would have preferred for them to show up maybe an episode or two prior,
Yeah.
and give us a little more reason to care about uh, the character. At first, they call her Eater, and then
Hmm.
she names herself Hope because that's what her parents called her, or whatever.
Yeah.
I think those beats would have hit a little bit better if we had more time to spend with those characters.
Yeah, I agree. And it kind of feels like what we complain about in other episodes, where it's like you introduce somebody, or in other shows where we introduce somebody in the second to last episode and then remove them from the story entirely in the last episode.
Yes,
So
we
it's
shall
like, what
call
was the
this
point?
the Cad Bane effect.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I'm still salty about that from the Book of Boba
Yeah,
Fett, but
yeah.
that's neither here nor there. Let's keep going.
So yeah, we get this nice little moment between Juliet and Solo, where
Mhm.
it's like this kind of awkward hug, but it's showing that they have grown fond of each other through this
Yeah.
experience, which I think is good.
Have you ever done the awkward ass out hug to someone
The
before?
ass out hug.
You know it. It's like this weird little like you're like this kind of, and it's really strange. I've done it. It's weird. I'm not proud of it. So
So I think that's all that we need to talk about in Silo 17. Of course,
wonderful.
this will come back around in the Silo 18 plot.
Yes.
But yeah, Silo 18, Mechanical is outlining their plan to essentially hold them hostage with the threat of blowing up the generator for
Yeah.
3 hours or something like that.
As Bernard says, it always comes back to the generator.
Yes. So they are threatening to blow up the generator if they don't get the truth out of the up top, and so this causes Bernard to send every raider down there that he has,
Hmm.
and then they arrest everybody for mechanical and bring them up top. And then Walker outlays this huge plan that actually they know sign language, because the
Yeah.
generator is so loud that they have needed to develop sign language to hear each other and talk
Yep.
to each other, because they can't hear each other. And so this was a popular theory that when Walker was talking to, I don't know the guy's name, the buff dude, and he was kind
Let's
of
call him
outlining
Shane
that
for the sake of inflating your ego.
he was outlining in the prior episode who they think the mole was,
Yeah.
and that was all code. So yeah, and that was the theory, and that proved to be correct. They had this whole master plan. I think the sheriff signaled a message up top to all the
Hmm.
police officers saying like, "Hey, this is what we're going to do," and they
Yep.
eventually take their side. And they actually don't blow up the generator, although they do put like a fake bomb down there so
Yeah.
that everyone will kind of swarm around it. But the real bomb is Dr. Nichols, and he blows himself up basically as a measure of sacrifice. He
Yeah.
finds out earlier in the episode that Juliet might still be alive, so he's trying to, you know, help her
How
legacy.
how did you feel about that sacrifice?
I just didn't care about the character enough for it to matter, and it
Okay.
seemed avoidable enough. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't have a timer, so I got to blow myself up. It's like that's a little. I don't
Yeah.
know. We could have come up with something better than that, but
I
oh
I
well.
don't mind that he died, but I would have liked it if we could have gotten to see him at least lay eyes on Juliet
Yeah.
one more time
Yeah.
before, like, if she saw him sacrifice himself, that would have had a lot of emotional weight to it.
Yeah.
But again, cardinal rule of film and television: we did not see a dead body,
It's true.
so
We didn't.
you're saying
That's
there's a chance.
it's a fair point.
But he's probably dead.
I don't know if there's a body to be seen, Corey.
Well, that is also a good point because he might have just been completely
Disintegrated.
obliterated into
Yeah.
smithereens. So
But yeah, so I thought this was an interesting end to this plot line where, that we've been talking about the Walker, double agent type
mhm.
thing,
Yeah,
and then they eventually just say, "Haha, she was in on it the whole time."
yeah. I had a feeling that they were going to do something to outsmart Bernard and IT.
Yeah,
I didn't have the sign language and the shorthand as how they were going to do it. I thought that was
yeah,
actually really cool
yeah.
that was the way they did it. Because you can go back and watch the prior episodes and
Hmm.
you'd be like, oh, okay. They
Yep,
are doing all the things they show from different
yep.
angles in this one, and that was all pretty cool. I thought it was pretty neat.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Um, But yeah, so they essentially pull a Bane and they trap everybody, all the cops, down deep with a bomb, and then they can control IT because there's no raiders up there to defend it.
Yeah,
But in the midst of this, we get Lucas going to Bernard and basically telling him what the safeguard protocol is,
yeah,
and it makes this. He makes this comment that like we have to speak very quietly because it might hear us,
yeah.
which is talking about the AI. And Bernard basically like gives up. And this is essentially what happened to the prior Judge Meadows. She went down there,
Yep,
figured out, oh, doesn't matter what we do, they're
yep,
just gonna poison us anyways. And then
yep,
she became an alcoholic and just went off the deep end kind of thing.
yep.
And basically, this is what Bernard does. Same
It,
exact reaction.
it was cool to see him like that though,
Yeah,
because he's so focused and so on a mission for the entire season, and he just it just breaks him when
yeah,
he finds this out, and he just doesn't care anymore. And
yeah.
I thought that was a very interesting move for the character, and we'll
Hmm.
talk in a little bit to see if we think that'll have any ramifications on season 3 or not. But
Yeah.
let's keep linear with the plot before we talk about that stuff.
Yeah. So at the same time, Patrick is leading this uprising to go outside because he's seen the piece of paper that has the ocean or whatever,
Mhm.
forest or whatever on it. And then at this, you know, moment of explosion where it seems like everything is, going to go crazy, Juliet shows up again.
Juliet
Uh,
lives,
she does, and she
as they've been saying
cleans.
this whole season.
They always do. They always clean, and she eventually cleaned. Comes back, gives the warning like, "Do not go outside. It's
Right.
not safe." And then she has this confrontation with Bernard, where Bernard was gonna shoot her or threaten to shoot her, but it's actually the gun for himself in
Mhm.
case the poison gets through the suit. But then they go back in the silo and get burned alive. And thankfully, one of them was wearing a convenient fire suit. And
Yeah.
I wonder if that was the plot armor.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that she ends up wearing a flame retardant suit that she gets from the other silo before coming back. Um, Before they get back into the room, so that room is there in the event that someone tries to come back in after cleaning, that it will
Right,
incinerate them, right?
right. I think
And,
so.
and Bernard is standing outside on the ramp holding the gun at her head, and uh, he's like, I don't care, and he says the line, I want to go outside because for once in my life, I don't want to feel any more pressure. And
Yep.
I was like, man, you took the most evil guy
Hmm.
in the silo who is literally like living the life of luxury, right? He's all the way at the tippy top. He's got nice clothes. He has adequate lighting in his house, which is not
Yep.
something that most of the people have. And even he's so just oppressed by the nature of living in a place like this that
Hmm.
he even breaks to get to that point, which I thought was pretty good. And then, of course, they both make it back into the incineration room, and what do you think? Because this is it smash cuts here to something
Yeah.
different, right?
Yeah.
And it leaves the thread open for the next season. Do you think that Bernard is going to make it through that and be horribly disfigured, or do you think he's dead?
I think he's done. Um, it's a nice way to save budget on casting because Tim Robbins is probably
He's probably
probably the
expensive. Yeah,
probably expensive, but I'm not sure. I think it's convenient that only one of them is wearing the fireproof suit, so it kind of begs the resolution of she will survive, he will not.
sure.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
and we conveniently get right before that scene, the scene in the vault with the Sims family,
yep,
where the AI basically tells the Sims family, Camille, wife, you're cool. Father and son, get the hell out. You suck. You're stupid. We don't want you.
yeah. And
um,
I wonder why that is. Like only certain people are allowed to have access to the AI, or is this part of a deeper thread that we're unaware of? Maybe she's related to somebody way back when that helped build the silo, something like that.
yeah, my thought there is that so this entire season they spend a lot of time making sure you're aware that she's the one that makes all the plans for their
Hmm.
family, and she's the smart one, and she's the cunning one, and she knows exactly who to talk to when and where. I think the AI is watching their every move, and I
Got it.
think it deemed her worthy of
Hmm.
being in charge, and I think that it'll lead to her eventually. Now that we're theoretically down ahead of IT, right? Because Bernard is supposedly dead,
Yep.
uh, that would lead to her taking over that particular role, which
Yep.
changes the whole power dynamic of the show in a very interesting way. Because Common's character is hell bent on ascending and being, respected and in power and all that, and just around every corner, he gets, rejected, swatted down, and
Yep.
all that. So,
Yep.
pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting that he walked in and said, "I'm trying to save the silo," and the AI said, "So am I."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So interesting to see where that goes. And so they also talk about like who's in charge in that discussion between Juliet and Bernard.
Hmm.
He says something around the lines of "I know what, but not who" kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then conveniently, we smash cut to the Who, and there's a giant wide establishing shot of the United States Capitol.
Yeah,
I
straight to
wonder if
Washington
this is,
D.C.
yeah. So we get this complete flashback, and it was it was almost as if we jumped to a different show because you're just so
Entirely. Yes.
used to,
Yep. Hmm.
and they couldn't have done it any better because it was raining, and you were like, oh, well, we haven't seen, and it's one of those things you don't realize is gone until you haven't seen it in several seasons, but like
Fair. Yeah.
weather and
Yep.
rain and all that stuff. So yeah, we get introduced to this congressman and journalist, and they are on a date, but it's not really a date. She's trying to get info out of him,
Yeah.
and they kind of go back and forth about something like dirty bombs and radiation and
Hmm.
some event that happened in New Orleans. And to me, it seems like it's alluding to this like false flag operation where they kind of fake this bomb from Iran or something, and then
Yeah.
they decide to start nuclear war because of it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what causes the silos to be built.
Yep.
But then, of course, it ends on this massive cliffhanger moment where he gives her this little thing from a gift shop because she went to Oregon,
Hmm.
and
She's a
their
duck.
mascot is the Ducks.
Yeah.
And he gives her this Pez dispenser with the duck, which was the
Yep.
relic from season one.
From season one. Yeah. Very interesting, and puts a definitive timestamp on when that flashback is happening, right?
Yeah.
Because for a minute there, when it first cut to that, I was like, are these people in the silo while these other people are just living their lives normally?
Right.
Like, holy cow. But then, of course, they show that, and it's okay, this is way
Correct.
before
Yeah.
uh,
They
the events of
also
the show.
like, and this was probably intentional too. They were kind of messing with us a little bit, where they walk into the bar, or he walks into the bar, and Nixon is on the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
newspaper thing of Nixon was on. I'm like, is this some sort of alternate history thing
Hmm.
where like a futuristic history
Yeah,
something?
because the newspaper clipping said Nixon bows out,
Yeah.
not Nixon resigns, which
Right.
is
Right.
certainly interesting. And they also, when he was going into the bar, they scanned him for any
for
radioactive.
radiation. Yeah.
Like that's certainly interesting, and we're going to see, I guess, where that goes. But you know, spoilers to a degree here. Both of those characters have been promoted to series regulars for season three. So
Yeah.
um, season two was not afraid to do two very separate storylines. I think it
Yeah.
kind of seems like season three is going to be moving towards part of it taking place way back in the past, and then the other half taking place in the silo. So curious to
Yeah.
see what you think about that.
No, I totally agree. I think that that's where they're going with it. They kind of tested the waters with these two storylines in season 2, and now it's going to be cross-cutting between present day and past.
Yeah. Did you notice that the congressman was also a political figure on
In
Succession?
Succession, yeah.
Yeah, he's been
Damn it,
typecast.
Nate, you're ruining everything.
But he's very good, and I like Jessica Henwick a lot too. So I'm very happy that they're both going to be part of the cast.
Mhm.
Um, and from the sounds of things, season three has already been filming, which is awesome.
Yep.
Um, Apple gave the green light to this show to finish the show
Mhm.
5 weeks into season one airing, which means that there will be a season three and a season four, and the scripts are completely written all the way until the end. Graham Yost, who's the creator of the show, let all that out of the bag after the finale this week, which um, hopefully that means it won't be another 2 years
Y
before the next season comes out, especially if filming is already taking place.
Yep.
Um, and this kind of seems like it might be something that they film both seasons back to back, so they might just kind of
Could
have
be.
it ready to go. They did the same thing with the Slow Horses show. They
Mm.
they would film 2 seasons at a time and then release them once every 8 months or a year or something like that. So I would be totally down for all that, because with a cliffhanger like that, I'm pretty anxious to find out what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's a problem with television in this era entirely that it takes so
Yeah,
long in between seasons normally, so I'm happy that it shouldn't, in theory, be that long before we get the next season.
yeah. What do you think is going to happen in the silo in the next season? Because how do
Yeah,
you
this
top a massive rebellion?
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because it leaves it a little bit in a resolution state. It's like,
Hmm.
well, we know how to stop the safeguard protocol, and that's the only thing kind of stopping us right now. Uh, so I'm not really sure. There's got to be some inciting incident, and maybe that's kind of the storyline is solving how to fix that,
Hmm.
and maybe interacting with the AI and stuff like that. But I also kind of wonder a little bit if Juliet starts sharing her knowledge of what's going on outside, and
Sure.
it's almost like a space race situation where they're like, "Oh, let's go find the other silos and see if we
Mm,
can liberate all of those."
yeah.
It's interesting. I think that there's a lot of different ways it could go. I'm honestly a little bit more excited about the flashback
Yeah.
plot line and figuring out how we got here, what caused it, and I'm assuming that there's going to be, if it's done the way I think it's going to, there will be kind of questions posed in the present that are answered in the past, and maybe
Hmm.
vice versa, and playing off reveals that way through different time periods. And I think
Yeah.
that that's a really effective storytelling technique where you can have setups and payoffs that occur completely different times from each other.
Right. Like the past can be your exposition dump of stuff, and the audience is then in on the secrets, but the characters in the silo aren't. Right.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, any
that's
of
kind of
that can
cool.
be true. Yeah.
I also think that yes, there's a little bit of resolution in the silo, but they could also go pretty much anywhere they want to now,
Hmm.
because the the pact that Bernard has kind of lays out, hey, rebellion's going to happen. And when it does happen, this is what you're going to do, and then the rebellion's going to be squashed, and then the cycle is going to repeat itself or whatever. But then that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So now who knows, we're not relying on this set of rules anymore that had been written by possibly the AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chat GPT, write me the write me the pact, and now we've deviated from that. So it really kind of opens up the storytelling to be, I'm guessing they're going to follow the book still, but pretty
Yeah.
much it could be whatever they want it to be.
Yeah, and I think what I find interesting is that we start the season with this rebellion where they all go outside and die. But then
Yeah,
we
yeah,
end
yeah.
we end the season on this rebellion where they are stopped from going outside, and now they have all of the information to know that
Hmm.
they should not go outside, or if they do, it needs to be very, very careful, very
Yeah.
cautious.
And they kind of realize that the actual rebellion that needs to happen is not against each other, but it's against the machines,
Yeah,
which is a typical sci-fi
the
thing,
Matrix.
right? Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's all of that. So it's great. I think it's really exciting. And between that and Severance, I think, sci-fi has a place over there, and it seems to be doing really well. So
I do think it is weird, and this is spoilers for a different show that we have reviewed recently, but we
okay.
just got two season finales that both were some secretive city type situation. And at the end, you find out that the person in charge is a giant AI robot. The other show I'm referring to is Skeleton Crew,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, it's just kind of weird that there was a commonality between those two.
Yeah. And there's a commonality between Silo and Severance too,
Yeah, a little bit.
right?
Yeah,
Like the first season goes in and establishes who your characters are, and then the second season seems like we're fighting back against the system is
yeah.
the general theme there. So, fighting back against the system and fighting against AI in the year 2025. Who knew?
I
What
wonder
a
what is inspiring these stories.
what a
It's a
wild concept.
mystery.
Cool, man. Well, anything else you want to share about this particular season or where we're headed?
I just wanted to get your thoughts on the overall season. We talked about the finale specifically,
Yeah,
but what did you
uh,
think?
I thought it started out strong, and I loved the first episode because it felt very like Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones
Yeah, a little
ish
bit.
when she first gets into Silo 17.
Hmm.
Um, it lulled a little bit for me in the middle,
Yeah.
but we've said this before. You could do that as long as you finish the season on a high note, right?
Hmm.
I think season one of Severance even did a little bit of that, where it was like,
Hmm.
okay, well, where are we going here? And then the last episode just like smacks you in the face and is fantastic. It kind of makes your brain subconsciously forget that there was a little bit of a lull in there.
Yeah.
I do hope that for season 3 and 4, uh, they try to light the show a little bit brighter. I've had a handful of conversations with some friends who have said I have to watch this at night with all the lights off, or else I can't see what's going
Yeah.
on, which is certainly something.
It
So,
is very
uh,
dark.
and especially when it aired the same night as Severance, and
Hmm.
Severance is a very bright show.
Hmm.
It just showed how dark that is, and I get the artistic and creative intent there that it's supposed to be dark and oppressive, and if it's hard for us to see, it should be hard for the characters to see, and blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
um, it's still a visual medium, and I would like to see it just kind of cranked up a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty dark. I think I saw that meme where it was like the person walking in with all the bright lights, and it
Yeah,
was like
yeah,
going from
yeah.
Silo to Severance.
Yep. Yeah.
One is very bright, one is very dark. Yeah.
Yeah, but aside from that, I thought it was another great season. I love that it was 10 episodes. I feel like 10 is just the sweet spot right now.
Hmm.
I think the days of 22 episode seasons like network TV are never going to happen again. But I think that the streamers are also figuring out that 6 episodes, like the way the Marvel shows were for a
Hmm.
while, or like Obi-Wan Kenobi was, it's just not quite enough. And it feels like that 8 to 10, maybe even 12 in some cases is kind of the sweet spot for prestige television, I guess is what
Yeah.
we're calling it. So I love that. And, full length hour long episodes, it gives you a lot of time to really connect with the characters and the story and all that. So I think they're in a good spot, and they're primed for a pretty incredible third and then final season in the fourth one.
Yeah. I think this was, as a season, you could kind of tell it was two halves of a whole,
Hmm.
where first season was the first half of the book, second half was the second season. But my assumption would be that in the second half of the book, there was a lot more page length devoted to the silo when
Yeah.
Juliet leaves
Hmm.
than there was Juliet's story. And they had to reconcile that with television,
Yeah.
and also reconcile it with the fact that Rebecca Ferguson is like the lead
A
of the show.
megastar.
And, and so they had to really stretch that out. And I think that really hurt it in the middle of the season. I was every episode it was like nothing is happening in
Mhm.
this story. It's like a whole episode to get like a helmet. It's just like excruciating.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
uh
on the other side, with the other silo, there were like 8 things that would happen
yeah,
in the
yeah,
course of one episode, right?
yeah. And so it was just back and forth, and uh, I don't feel like the screen time was used effectively in Juliet's storyline. Like maybe do something more character related or something. And she also has like a variety of bodily injuries that happen to her throughout the course of the season. It's like a series of unfortunate events. You're like, oh my
Yeah,
god, what more could possibly happen to this woman?
but at the same time, what more could happen to her is nothing because she's the main character and she's got
Yeah,
that plot
yeah,
armor no matter
that's
what.
true.
So you don't ever
Yeah,
really think that she's necessarily in peril,
right.
which could be one of the other reasons why the other story was more exciting because you think to
Hmm.
yourself, well, these characters could all technically be expendable, right?
Yeah,
So I don't know. It's little critiques that hopefully make it to their ears for season 3.
yeah. But yeah, I mean that's really my main critique on the season. I think overall, it was similar to season one, and that it starts with a bang and ends with a bang, and in the
Mhm.
middle, it's kind of it's fine. You just got to kind of make it through.
Yep. Cool. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. We would love to hear from all of you. If you checked out season 2 of Silo, drop us a comment below. Let us know what your thoughts are on the season as a whole and where you think it's going to go for seasons 3 and season 4. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you like movies and TV shows, and tap that notification bell because we are doing weekly reviews of Severance. We have 9 more episodes for season 2, and those will be dropping every Thursday shortly after the episode drops. So stay tuned for all of that and so much more. And until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.